When I don't have my health, nothing else is great. I'm not able to serve as well. I'm not even able to enjoy the good things of life. We've made health cool, doing the things that athletes do. Looking at our body and realizing that every body has the right to be elite. When you can establish rhythm intentionally, you will notice an increase in capacity and ability to handle stress. When overreaching and regeneration are not in rhythm and it's too much overreaching. It's so common to experience stressors in you are the hero of this story. You are the one that gets to ultimately do the work, make the changes, and realize the next steps. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer. And if you're new here, as always, welcome. It's just been such a blessing this year to be able to continue to see the growth of this community, those people wanting to take ownership of their health and really be educated, equipped, and empowered to step into a new level of life. And I've been talking to so many people. I'm currently on the road in Tampa, but I've been talking to so many people about their health journeys lately. And the resounding similarity is that when they feel healthy, when they feel well inside as well as outside, when they feel like they have a handle, control on the wheel, everything else is better. Everything else is better. I had this one individual come up to me the other day and say, you know what, Justin? I was on a vacation with my family. We were in the Bahamas. It was beautiful. We had this beautiful, amazing home right on the water, amazing views. It was hot. It was warm. The weather was perfect. The pool was great. We had sea-doos outside. It was just literally the best thing ever. But I woke up every single day with headaches that wouldn't go away. I would eat something and I would get an upset stomach. And it was like the entire trip didn't even matter. And so he goes, health matters so much to me because when I don't have my health, nothing else is great. I'm not able to serve as well. I'm not able to run my business as well. I'm not able to be there for my family as well. I'm not even able to enjoy the good things of life. And so that is why we do what we do here. That is why we're here. And that's just the mission and the motivation that I have. I still remember going through school. I still remember the classroom. I was at Westfield University in Massachusetts, sitting in one of my kinesiology classes. It was for my undergraduate degree. And I was sitting in the classroom, and really we were just talking about different options and opportunities, places that you could go. And people were talking about private practice. They were talking about general population. They were talking about athletic training. They were talking about big box gyms. They were talking about professional sports. And there was not a single bone in my body, not a single cell. Let's just even go more granular. There wasn't a single cell in my body that had any interest in working with, quote unquote, the everyday person. And to be honest, just the way that it was even portrayed, this is back in 2010, 2009. And just even the way it was being portrayed, it was like, this doesn't even sound cool. Like, this doesn't even sound like a place that like there's good things happening. And that was, again, where I just knew I had my mind set. I was going to be in the professional sports leagues. I was going to work in professional hockey. And I still remember that just being the thing, because that's where this motivation came from. And now being on the complete opposite end of this and being like, no, I love the fact that I'm able to bring this cool factor, this intentional factor that's not ho-hum-drum, general health, general population, the same old things that we'd always heard, but rather, no, this is cutting edge science. We've made health cool. Like, doing the things that athletes do, looking at our body and realizing that every body has the right to be elite. Every body has the right to be well. Every body has the right to be healthy. But the privilege to experience it is held for those who are willing to take ownership, willing to do things differently. And it's just a passion of mine that's completely flipped. And I could have I have zero interest in being in elite sports anymore, and have all the interest, all the passion, all the the motivation to help everyday people, business owners specifically, who are feeling like they need to trade their health for their mission, to really take ownership of this and get their arms around it. And so today we're diving in. We're talking about stressors today because over the course of the last few weeks, obviously we've been talking a lot about food, a lot about these things. And I want to talk about the stress that food has on our body. And I've had a lot of people start message me in the emails that I send out from my newsletters, as well as from my social media, saying, well, how much stress is good? Is stress good? Is stress bad? Like, what stressors am I under? How do I actually know? How do I actually realize these things? I know HRV measures it, but how much of it is actually good stress or bad stress? And so I want to put some clarification to some of these things today. And if this podcast serves you today, the only thing, again, that I ask is that you would share it, that you would subscribe to it, that you would ultimately leave a rating for this podcast, because that's how we reach more people. The more people we can reach, the more impact we can have, and the more changes we can make in people's lives. And so when we think about stress, and the holiday season is a great time to really talk about this, because you got your in-laws coming into town. You've got family that you're around. You're staying up maybe a little bit later at night because you've got some holiday parties that you're going to. Maybe because you're at holiday parties, you're not eating the same food you usually do. Maybe you're having a few more alcoholic beverages in your day. These are all things that we need to be aware of and that we need to look into. Now, when we think about stress and we go to the definition of stress, the actual definition of stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. And so I would give that also, I would add in a state of mental or emotional. I would add in a state of mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. And so when we think about this, stress and it actually goes and says illness are almost like words of synonymy, if that's a word. They are synonymous to one another. And so these are the things that we have to actually start to understand, is that the stress in our life will make us ill if we are not aware. And so the stressors that we need, and in my book, The Power of Ownership, I really recommend that you guys go to Amazon and get a copy of it. The Power of Ownership, Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Relentless Pursuit of Normal. In this book, I talk about the concept that your body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. And I give this example, right? So let's take this cup as an example. And again, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see that I've just grabbed my water bottle. And my water bottle is 30 ounces large. And so if there were faucets over top of this water bottle, we're working out a lot. We're training for a marathon. Let's turn that faucet on. We are hosting Christmas. Let's turn that faucet on. We don't have all of our Christmas gifts bought yet. We turn that faucet on. We're at 4 Christmas parties in 1 week. Let's turn that faucet on. We're not eating very well. Let's turn that faucet on. And because this water bottle is 30 ounces large, would it be more time or less time that it would take to fill up with 1 faucet or 5? Well, obviously, if 5 faucets are on, it's going to fill up faster. And so the only way that we are able to build capacity to handle the stress that we're under, the stress that we're experiencing, the stress we're being put in front of, is to poke holes into this cup. And the more holes we have in this cup, the better the drainage. So the faster or the more we can turn on these faucets and not realize consequences that are negative. And so when we sit here, people go, well, what are the holes in the cup, Justin? What am I poking in? That's where your habits and behaviors come in. That's where the self-care, that's where the sauna, that's where the workout, that's where the naps maybe in the day, that's where the breath work, that's where the delayed eating or fasting in the morning. That's where the high quality hydration and electrolyte comes in. That's where the supplementation comes in. That's where all of these positive behaviors start to have exponential impact, especially during seasons of higher stress. And so in this book, something that I talk about as I talk about this quadrant system, I'm going to show a little picture of this again on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, go to this, or you can even just go to just grab a copy of the book, The Power of Ownership, or go to our website, ownitcoaching.com, because this image is up there as well. And so I'm holding this up. And so if you can imagine this in your mind right now, think of 4 quadrants. Okay, so put one line down the middle, one line that goes over top of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 quadrants. In the upper left-hand quadrant, it's something I call overreaching. And overreaching is where we have been exposed to maybe 4, 5, 6 faucets being turned on. We're doing more than normal. We're extending, we're reaching, we're overreaching of what our normal capacity is. The quadrant to the right of that, so we got upper left, overreaching. Upper right is what I call ownership. This is where we feel like we're thriving, like we're really, really good. We've got a great rhythm in our life. The bottom right quadrant is called regeneration. This is where the faucets would actually turn off and the holes would start to be poked into our cup. And then there's a bottom left quadrant called burnout. And the thing about this quadrant system and why I love this quadrant system is it gives us a really powerful visual. In the upper left quadrant of overreaching, that's where your faucets are on, like they're going, like you've got all these things. And I'll go back to the examples, especially around holiday time. You're not getting the sleep that you normally get. You're having to entertain people. You're having to go to all these holiday parties. You've got family coming into town. You've got to start buying gifts. You've got to start figuring out how to do these things. You've got bigger meals that you're eating, foods that's a little bit more rich than you've usually had. Maybe you're indulging in a few more desserts than you usually do, having a few more alcoholic beverages, maybe not prioritizing getting to the gym as much. These are the things that start to turn these faucets on. Well, the only way we get more holes in the cup is if we start to put on this regeneration quadrant. And that's where we start to poke those holes in. So the things that we're experiencing actually don't impact us in a small period of time, meaning a week, a couple weeks. They don't start to impact us. We don't make this season of our life a lifestyle. Because I know a lot of us are probably going to realize, man, I just got completely derailed during holiday season. And then I got sick. I think I talked about it the other day. I don't think it's flu season. I don't think it's cold season. Take a look back at this. We've got a holiday all about candy, October 31st, Halloween. Stay up late, don't get great food or don't eat great food, have a lot of candy, etc. Right after that, we have the time shown or the time change. So we get less sunlight. And because we have less sunlight, we're probably outdoors less. Then right after that, we have Thanksgiving, a lot of food, a lot of alcohol, staying up late. Then we've got the temperature change, get into December, it probably gets a little bit colder wherever you are. So now you're definitely not going outside as much. Then you've got Christmas where, again, eating, drinking, staying up late. Then you've got New Year's, definitely staying up to see the fireworks at midnight, kiss somebody, say, hey, happy New Year's. And then all of a sudden you wonder why you've got a flu, you've got a cold, you've got all these things because we're exposed to more faucets turning on in our life, but yet we're actually not putting more holes in our cup, we're plugging them up. And so this overflow of toxicity at the cellular level, this overflow from these faucets being on start to actually hinder us. And we fall into that burnout quadrant. We fall into that burnout quadrant. And so this is where I want you to kind of really sit into this. I'm going to read 2 little excerpts here because when we think about this, we should have a rhythm between overreaching and regeneration. Overreaching is necessary. It's actually a state called hormesis, where we purposefully and intentionally expose ourselves to stressors that are going to overreach us purposefully. We do that when we're training. You're running a marathon, you're going to start to expose yourself to further distances every single day, or maybe running at faster speeds so that your body now has to adapt positively to that. That's a hormetic stress response. These are positive things. Maybe you start to go in a cold exposure. You start cold plunging and you start at 60 degrees. It's colder than water you usually ever get into. You spend only 30 seconds in there. That's a hormetic experience that your body now has to adapt to. And we're going to slowly turn the temperature down. We're going to slowly increase the time. And so we're slowly adding on purposeful stress to get us to grow. Now, when we do this too often, when we add too much stress, that's when we start to see this complete overflow of this cup and what we're experiencing. And so these are the things that I want us to understand, because I'm going to read this excerpt. So it says, out of rhythm, when overreaching and regeneration are not in rhythm and it's too much overreaching. It's so common to experience stressors in everyday health, mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, all at once. We can't choose which ones are there. They're just integrated together. You're growing a business, raising a family, getting married, trying to get fit, and experiencing high levels of stress that are never ceasing. You tell yourself it's just a season, but the season ends up lasting for 3 years. That is not a season, it's a lifestyle. And if you're honest, it's a lifestyle that's slowly killing you, leaving you sick, overwhelmed, and exhausted in the meantime. It's a dysfunctional rhythm that many of you consider normal. Your outcomes are simply a lagging result of your habits, behaviors, and lifestyle choices that ultimately end up causing a consequence. And so this is what happens when we're out of rhythm with too much overreaching. Now, the thing that I want you to hold on to here is there's a key component to this, right? And when we overreach too much, how do we measure that? Heart rate variability. I've talked about this before. This is why this is the golden metric. It is the eye-opening experience, the thing that says, hey, I need you to start recovering a little bit more. You're out of rhythm for where I need you to be. HRV is that measure. And what we'll see a steep decline in heart rate variability. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm in that season right now a little bit. If I look at my HRV over the course of the last 2 weeks, my HRV has steadily declined. Why? I ran the High Rocks race. Right from High Rocks, I went into 3 days of travel. Right from 3 days of travel, I went into my 3 miles every 2 hours for 24 straight hours. So I didn't sleep that night. I ran 36 miles in preparation for my 100-miler coming up in January. From there, I had a week at home, but we had people visiting us and constantly coming in. And now I'm back on the road. We had Thanksgiving. And all of a sudden here we are on December 12th, and I'm finishing up my last trip on the road. And so I have been like you talk about faucets on, major faucets on. And even though I've poked holes, I'm still feeling a little bit of overflow, feeling a little bit of fatigue. I'm feeling some of these things. Now, knock on wood, but blessed that I have not gotten sick, blessed that I still feel energetic, blessed that I still am able to feel good. But it's only because I've got enough holes poked in. But HRV is still telling me, hey, Justin, this has to be just a season, and the season has to be over pretty soon, because I'm actually starting to not feel very great. So that's, again, something that I want you to be aware of. But you can also be out of rhythm with too much regeneration. Too much regeneration. And I'm going to read this, because too much regeneration would mean that we're doing too much in this lower area, and we're not getting these little exposures of what we call hormetic stress or hormesis. And so I'm going to speak to this because I think it'll be, again, a really powerful way for us to understand what this looks like. So too much regeneration is a little less common, but has an equal cause in burnout and development of chronic health issues because of the inability to handle stressors. You probably have people in your life that you realize this, like all of a sudden they'll go on a trip, right? They'll go on a trip where they have to get to the airport. They have to get their bags checked. Something doesn't go right. They've got to figure out how to get the family there. They stay up a little bit too late. And then all of a sudden, guaranteed they're getting a cold. Guaranteed they're the one that's the first person down. It's because they don't have the capacity, because they don't expose themselves to stressors often enough that their body's adapted to it. They're weak. They're weak. And these are the people, I hate to say it, these are the people that often die the fastest. But when you look at this, the decay in your health and acceleration of aging comes from what I call the aggressive pursuit of comfort, which can only be prevented by being exposed to stress and the overreaching quadrant. The more established you get and the more successful you become, the pursuit of comfort will increase unless you design your life differently. It has been shown that by avoiding stress, your life expectancy dramatically drops due to the increase in stress for very simple tasks. So think about it. If you don't stress yourself on a regular basis, if you don't work out very well or very often, if you don't expose yourself to temperature differentials, your body never has to adapt to anything. So it loses that capability. So now, walking outside in cold weather, oh my gosh, I'm freezing. I get jittery all of a sudden and like my body can't handle it. And I go into like this nervous system shock. And then all of a sudden I get sick the next day. Or all of a sudden I'm walking upstairs with groceries or playing with kids and I'm exhausted and I've got no capacity to handle it. It's been the less developed you are in an area, the more susceptible you are to burnout, illness, and disease. So you have to find your rhythm. It's why you'll see some people work all their life. They were active and then suddenly they retired, became sedentary, didn't participate in any hobbies that elicited a stress in their health and well-being, and their health dramatically deteriorated at an exponential rate. People go to Naples to die. That's usually what I hear. It's terrible. I know I shouldn't say that, but that's typically what we've kind of joked about in the past. When you stop exercising at intensities that are uncomfortable, when you eat at the slightest twinge of hunger, you sit in air-conditioned or heated homes and never experience dramatic temperature fluctuations, your body stops having to adapt and you become less resilient and easier to kill. Stress can be a weapon if you know how to design a rhythm. When you can establish rhythm intentionally, you will notice an increase in capacity and ability to handle stress and ultimately push off different chronic stress loads that are going to come and search for you. And so this is really what we come back to, is realizing that stressors are placed on us, faucets turning on, and the more holes we have poked in, the harder our faucets can actually pour water out consistently. And that's growing in our capacity. And just too many of us don't have enough faucets on. Too many of us aren't exposing ourselves to these things. And so it's the hormetic stress. Hormesis is that tone you need to, or is that term you need to know. And the moment that we start to understand hormesis is positive micro doses of stress, cold plunging, exercising, fasting, exposing yourself to rooms with people that are sometimes ill or sick or not well, like these, not traveling with a mask on a plane, like having your body having to battle through some of this. These are the things that are critical. Now, we don't want to put ourselves in a lot of these situations if our HRV is plummeting or going downwards because we have too many faucets on. Do you think it's a good time to start cold plunging and exposing yourself to a lot of these different environments when you're not getting the sleep necessary, you're overweight, and you don't eat well? Of course not, because you already have all of these other stressors going on around you. And we have to realize that oops, dropped my bottle. We have to realize that these faucets that we have on are things that are a lot of times that we're unaware of. The food we eat, we've talked about it. The toxic food that we eat, the chemicals, the processing that has to go on in our body, that's a stressor that we completely ignore. The air quality, the air we breathe, if it's highly polluted, or the fires over in California right now, your body is going to have to process that air a lot harder than it is when the air is clear and clean. The water, when we're drinking water, if our water isn't clean and filtrated, then we're going to have some other issues that our body's going to have to filter through. Sleep. If we're not getting the sleep we need, our body is not regenerating cellularly the way that it needs to. And so all of these things add up. They all add up. The body keeps the score. And eventually our body keeps the score to a point where it'll send us into that burnout space. And so these are the things that I want you to realize and I want you to recognize. Stress is a good thing when it's in rhythm. Stress regenerate, stress regenerate, stress regenerate. And what will happen is when we're in rhythm, we will live in ownership. We will feel like things are flowing. We will feel like we have control. We'll feel like we have autonomy. We'll feel like we are moving in a positive direction. We will feel like we're thriving. When we're out of rhythm, we will ultimately feel like we're burned out. Like there's no hope. We're getting dragged down. We're exhausted. We're tired. We're fatigued. We can't get clarity. We have these different symptoms that we're experiencing. that's what will start to occur. And those are your signs. And heart rate variability is the sign and measure for each one of those. If we're trending downwards, we're out of rhythm. Is it too much overreaching or not enough? Ask yourself that question. Your body knows the truth. We're seeing an upward trend. Man, we're thriving. We're in ownership. Things are great. And so I really encourage you to take an account of what's actually happening. What are you going into this holiday season? What does this actually look like for you? So that you can start to optimize the stressors that you're experiencing and start to thrive even in a time that may be out of routine for you. But it's only when we use data that we can actually figure that out. So again, I encourage you, dive into some of those resources. The book, The Power of Ownership, available on Amazon. Really encourage you to dive in there. Go take a look so that you can dive into a lot of these. It makes a great Christmas gift. To be honest with you, I got another feedback today from somebody who had bought a bunch of books during my launch and gave them out to their business peer group. And he met with them today, and he had 6 different people come up to him and say, this book has been life-changing for me. And so The Power of Ownership, Redeem Your Health, Live Life by Design, and Break the Relentless Pursuit of Normal. Amazing gift to give this holiday season. You can get it on Amazon. Again, if you message me via Instagram and you want to get that book signed, I'll actually pay for the book to come to me, sign it, and send it back to you. Just something I love to do for the audience and continue to connect with y'all. So I appreciate you guys listening. If today was helpful for you, if it created some level of clarity and spoke to you, again, I just ask that you would share it with somebody, that you would message it to somebody, that you would give it to somebody that you love so that they can ultimately realize life in a different way. Because at the end of the day, stress is necessary. We have to have stress in our life. Too much or not enough will have consequences. And HRV is the guiding light as to helping us understand that answer. Because at the end of the day, when we live differently, when we do different things, we get different results. And it's time to take our head out of the sand and take ownership for our health. You are your white knight. You are your hero. You are the hero of this story. You are the one that gets to ultimately do the work, make the changes, and realize the next steps. But I just want to be your guide by your side. At the end of the day, we know success is different. So own your different, and we'll see you next week.